take part at one of the best golf courses in the Southeast. Limited spaces available, so visit 5pointsoflife.org or call 352-224-1728 to register your team today. This incredible tournament boasts one of the best player gift packages in the area. A delicious lunch will be provided and award ceremony. The 5 Points of Life Golf Tournament at Golden Ocala.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
One of my favorite types, well, my favorite book is always a biography. I always love hearing true stories of real people, especially when they go in depth and especially when there's something really outstanding about their lives. And I really think there's probably something outstanding about everybody's life. You are listening at a good time. You're going to hear a really good story right now. It is in a book called Single-Handed, written by our guest Daniel M. Cohen. And turns out his mom lives in our listening audience. I think I heard him tell you in the Villages, right?
Yep, he's going to give her a shout out.
So that's kind of a side cool reason to have Daniel on the phone with us. But Daniel is a filmmaker, a journalist, a film critic. He's written and directed some award-winning independent films. This book, Single-Handed, let me tell you about this, and I might be mispronouncing the man's name. Tibor Rubin. I'll say it that way until we get corrected if I need to be. But he was in a concentration camp during the Holocaust. I think he spent a year or so in there, and then made his way to America after World War II, and then served for America in the Korean War. And it wasn't until, gosh, I can't remember when it was, but he was awarded the Medal of Honor.
2005.
In 2005?
The age
Okay.
of 76.
So how amazing is that story? He's a Korean War hero, a Medal of Honor recipient. He received the Medal of Honor 50 years after his service. And the book shows how his time in the concentration camp actually helped as a POW. I forgot to mention that part in the Korean War. With the other soldiers, other prisoners. So this is just such a great opportunity to speak to Daniel Cohen and find out about this hero, really. And good morning, Daniel. How are you?
Good. Robin, Larry, thanks so much for having me on. Everybody calls me Dan.
Dan.
So, and I just want to shout out to my mom who lives in the Villages and is probably listening right now.
Happy Mother's Day, too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm in Santa Monica, California, sitting in my office watching the squirrels attack the bird feeder.
The squirrels love the bird feeders here, too, by the
Wow.
way.
I know, it's the same all over, isn't it?
I spent a good portion of 1977 living right around the corner from Zookie's.
Oh, great.
Zookie's isn't there anymore, but the sign is still there, right?
Exactly. Boy, you have a good memory for that, because that's a funny thing. Yeah, when I moved here, it was... I think I've lived here about 20 years, and Zookie's has been gone ever since I got here.
Oh, is that right? See, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
You have to go to Izzy's up the street, which is open 24 hours.
Isn't it?
Oh, wow.
Isn't it funny though that it must have been such an iconic place that they kept the sign, even though the
Exactly.
restaurant is gone.
They're just repurposing they just repurposed the building recently.
So, as a filmmaker, do you like to make films? I mean, the book is obviously such a wonderful biography. So I have so many questions about you doing this. I mean, how did you find this story?
Okay, I was introduced to Teddy, and some people call him Tibor. Sometimes he refers to himself as Tibor, sometimes Tibor, but the English translation from the Hungarian is Teddy.
Okay, and he's Hungarian. Okay, I forgot to mention that.
Yes, he was from Hungary, and I met him sort of by accident and started to hear his story. And after I listened a little bit and got to know him, first of all, he made me laugh out loud because he was so humorous.
Where did you meet him? Like in a restaurant or something? How did you have this?
No. I was introduced by a rabbi who was looking for somebody to write his life story because he was getting older and he no longer had the ability to go out and make public speaking engagements. so I met him, and I'm not a war guy. I mean, I served briefly in our armed services, and my father and all my family served in the services. But I wasn't the right guy in a weird way. But I was so taken by his personality that I almost had no choice in the matter. He was such a lively, funny, humble, self-deprecating person that he compelled me to drop other projects for almost close to 3 years to tell his story and then to try and get it published, which I've been quite fortunate.
That is awesome. Well, this story needs to be told. So the rabbi was the one who really wanted the story told. He was kind of too humble to even worry about it, like most of our vets.
Yeah, and I think I try to explain why, at least in Tibor's case, that when he came back from the Korean War after 30 months of imprisonment up in North Korea, he didn't breathe a word of all the remarkable things he did for 30 years until he was found by his former war buddies who insisted when they heard that he had not received the Medal of Honor that he pursue it. And if he didn't pursue it, that they would do it, which they did for 25 years until he received the medal in 2005.
Wow. Were you able to speak to anybody who explained why such a long time passed?
Well, I was able to piece together, at least from my point of view, why he was so quiet and why he didn't talk about these things. And part of it had to do with his religious background, but part of it had to do with the way he was raised, not to I suppose, advocate on his own behalf.
It's that whole generation, like though, don't you think, Dan? Don't you see that? I see that too, you know.
I think that's part of it. Also, I think what we now call PTSD was not recognized at all. And just to get into the story a little bit, before I wrote it, and I found his life unbelievable, but the family provided me with a sheath of letters from former buddies, most of whom had suffered terrible PTSD. And these guys made it a priority to see that this story was told. And their eyewitness accounts were most of what inspired me to drop everything else I was doing to tell Tibor's story from Tibor and their point of view.
My goodness. Well, we have to take a little break, and after the break, we're going to dive into this fully. Daniel M. Cohen is on the phone with us. He's our guest because he has written this outstanding book called Single-Handed. I hope you're getting some awards for this. Today, Robin pointed out, is VE Day, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, my, yes.
Right. All right, we'll take a little break, and we'll be right back. This is The Source, WOCA Ocala.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Partly sunny today, a high of 85 to 89. Tonight will stay mainly clear, a low of 63 to 68. Partly sunny, stays warm tomorrow, a high of 87 to 92. And sunny to partly cloudy, warm for Mother's Day Sunday, high 89 to 93. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Maggie Johnson.
Gene Powell Pasture Mowing, 352-629-2440. In addition to our pasture mowing service, we also offer fence row spraying. Now is the perfect time to get ahead on weed control for an overall aesthetic appearance. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing, 352-629-2440 or online at powellgene, Gene, at yahoo.com. We are licensed and insured. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing, 352-629-2440.
One of the most common questions those nearing retirement are asking, will I outlive my money? Retirement questions like these and many more will be answered every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement with hosts Francois and Julian Pozenet. Francois and Julian will help you put your retirement puzzle together. Catch Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement Saturdays at 9 a.m. on Ocala's News Talk, The Source 96.3 FM and 1370 AM.
All right, 14 minutes before 11 o'clock. Gosh, the breaks just don't go fast enough when you have a really good guest, don't they? Daniel M. Cohen is our guest out in Santa Monica. One of my favorite places in the whole world is Santa Monica. Is it daylight there yet? Yeah, it must be.
Oh, yeah, no, it is. When I started this morning, it was pitch black night at 5 o'clock. Now it's the birds are out, the squirrels are out, everybody's having a good time. It's a beautiful morning.
And your mom
thank
was...
you so much. My mom is in the village.
In the
Thank you
villages.
again, Robin and Larry, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Do you know what I love about this? I mean, it sounds like you developed a relationship with Tibor, and it sounds like he had pure memory. I mean, it sounds like he remembered dates, he remembered details, or am I wrong? Did you have to pick his brain? Did you have to get him to go over things a few times before it made sense?
Here's what happened. And you know what? It was really lucky. Tibor was good on certain things. He was about 81 when he started. But there were friends who were still alive. And when I found that out, people from Europe, there were a couple of those. There were people from the actually a guy from the concentration camp was still with us, and he's a character in the book. There were two guys who had been in Camp 5, one of whom was one of the guys who testified that Tibor had saved his life. And the first thing this guy said to me when I talked to him was, his name is Dick Whalen, lives in upstate New York, I'll do anything for Tibor. He saved my life in the prison camp. And then I went to several other sources, books, a handful of books and magazines, and was able to, I would talk to one person or read something and get back to Tibor and stimulate his memory, because that's just the way it is with all of us.
Yeah,
things we need to be prompted, we need to be talked to. And I was able to piece together the book based on those different sources.
What is most amazing about him is that we had read that he was 13 years old when he was in the concentration camp. When he was liberated and then he was able to come to America, he joined the U.S. service right away, and he wasn't, and he did not become a U.S. citizen until after his service.
Oh yes, he couldn't become a citizen. He was a Hungarian national, and he couldn't become a citizen because when he came, he learned English, and when his aim was to join the army to pay back the U.S. for liberating him. The problem was his English was so bad he failed the army entrance exam twice, and the third time the recruiters helped him to cheat, or he wouldn't have gotten in. He would have never gotten in.
Oh wow! Where is he now? What is he, like 86 now or something?
Yeah, and he's in failing health. He had some bad times last year, but of course you have to keep in mind he was wounded several times, almost killed once, I believe, when he was hit he was in a mortar shell attack. And he also went through several periods. He had diabetes, heart problem, high blood pressure, difficulty walking, has been admitted to the hospital numerous times, and they once told him that his prospects weren't good, and he said, "Don't worry, I have no plans of dying." And he surprised the doctors.
Wow.
He said, I'm taking matters into my own hands, and I'm deciding to live. And he did.
Oh, wow. And where does he live now?
Garden Grove. He came back from the Korean War in '53. His family, his brothers, his surviving brothers and sister, had moved to Southern California, where he remained for 50 years.
Wow. Tell me about the title, Single-Handed. Explain the title.
Well, writers need good titles to get people's attention, because there are so many books out there.
Yeah.
And basically, Tibor was a self-starter. He single-handedly defended a hill from hordes of North Koreans. He single-handedly went onto a battlefield to rescue a guy who had been left for dead. When he was in the prison camp, he single-handedly left the prison camp hundreds of times over a period of 2.5 years looking for food. I have to keep in mind that the Chinese prison camp was not like a concentration camp with 20-foot walls, barbed wire, and sentinels all around. The communist Chinese knew that these guys had nowhere to go, so they weren't really. The escape was not an option. So when Tibor left the camp in the middle of the night, crawled under the barbed wire, he went into the local fields, the farms, and stole food to bring back to the guys in his house. I mean, he could have been caught and shot, true, but it was so cold and so miserable that the Chinese, they weren't worried about that. And many of the other guys were too fearful to do that, but Tibor had no fear at this point in his life. He was just determined to do whatever he could to help his fellow soldiers.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the process of getting the Medal of Honor, because it's kind of like the Titanic. You watch the Titanic movie and you know it's going to sink. Mm-hmm. You read the Tibor Rubin story, you know he's going to get the medal, but you're still on the edge of your seat wondering if he's going to get the medal.
Yeah.
I know, and for all those years, these guys that met up with him in 1980, there were 7 of them who were survivors of either the battalion that he was in or the prison camp. And these guys endeavored, they thought a great injustice had been done, and indeed it had. And I think over the period of 25 years, most of them perished. There were only 2 of them alive when he finally did get the medal. They just died they were wounded, they were older. And and Tibor had almost given up hope. He was 76 years old when the call finally came from the government that he was to get the medal.
Now,
and it just was a remarkable, just one of those things you just can't believe when you hear it.
And one of the things that is troubling a little bit, but maybe you can clear it up for me, in the book when you say that, I don't know if one or more people believed that he was being denied the Medal of Honor, he and others, because of being Jewish.
Well, I don't think it was that he suffered persecutions at the hands of a sergeant who hated Jews, blacks, and Mexicans. So that was in the beginning. And he was the only Jew in the company. That was
his buffet of prejudice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's it. But that was during the war. Things were tough. People were crazy. It was in the 50s. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
The Army itself didn't take that point of view, but there was a statute of limitations that said unless a guy was nominated for the award within 2 years of having service, that he was ineligible. So it took an act of Congress finally to have him considered. So it wasn't prejudice at the hands of the Army. It was the Army's inability, because of its own rules, to really look at him. So that was something that they faced for many years. And that's just, and what happened was a law was passed so that not only Jews, but also blacks and Mexicans and Asians could be recognized for service that went back to World War II. So Tibor was just fortunate, finally, that he was considered against all odds. And I don't believe that was a matter of prejudice. There's one other thing I want to mention, which I really found fascinating, and it's this. It was thought that prisoners of the GIs, who were prisoners of the Communist Chinese, had been influenced by the Chinese attempt to indoctrinate them into communism, like the Manchurian Candidate, when in reality, nothing could have been further from the truth.
Really?
Oh, my gosh.
Really?
Oh, my gosh.
What did he do for a living?
He basically came back, and I think he celebrated his freedom for 2 or 3 years on back pay, and then he worked for his brother. He was considered completely disabled due to his wounds.
Okay.
But he worked in his brother's liquor store for a long time, worked part-time as a butcher, raised a family, and volunteered a lot of times at VA hospitals, entertaining and amusing GIs who had gone through the same thing he'd gone through. In fact, until he was 85, I think, during Christmas, he dressed up as Santa Claus and walked through the neighborhood and gave the kids gifts, and went to the VA hospital and gave them gifts. He was just like a 1 in a million personality.
Was his wife and his children aware of everything he went through, or did he keep that close to the vest?
Kept it close to the vest for 30 years until he was forced. It was forced out to the open by his fellow soldiers.
Oh, wow.
Nobody
and you.
ever knew.
And you.
Yeah,
Nobody
and
ever
you.
knew.
So have his children read your book?
The book just came out 3 days ago. So
okay.
They're in the process. Yeah, no, they knew in the 80s. His family found out, and they knew all about the GIs called the house, and they said, we got to talk to Private Rubin. And the wife would say, well, I don't know you. Why? Who are you? And they would explain they would say, Tibor saved my life in a prison camp. Tibor saved my life on the field of battle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, just another person.
Crazy, huh?
Another person. There was a Holocaust survivor who met up with the Nazi that was on trial a week ago or whatever.
Yes.
And it was an amazing story also on her part. Dan, thank you for being on the air with us. This is such a great interview, and the book is outstanding. I have a copy of this book. It's one of those that I don't really want to give away, but I will.
Yeah.
So I'll buy my own. So call me if you want this one. It's right here. It's a hardcover copy. It's just a couple days released, and you will love this one, especially if you love biographies. This is an outstanding, and never have I read a biography like this one. Are you going to make this one into call me if you want this one. And Dan, how do we get the book? Is it on all the websites?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it's on all the websites that you'd imagine, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent booksellers. You can also read a lot of stuff about Tibor on my website, which is www.danielmcohenauthor.com.
Okay.
And there are exclusive photos, there's a slideshow, there's other stories, and a synopsis, and then you can click on that and buy a book or whatever.
There you go. Let me give this one away. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Ken.
Ken? Do you know where we are?
Smith. Yes, I do.
Did you say your last name is Smith?
Yes.
Okay. Ken, it'll be waiting for you here. And just to make sure you know, we're at the Paddock Mall now.
Okay.
Okay?
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, excellent. The phone lit up as soon as I offered it, so I'm sure you're going to have a hit with this one. And any plans to make this into a film?
Well, that's not up to me. I'm a filmmaker. I have written most of the screenplay, but we'll see if the book is successful. I'm sure somebody here. But it's only been out for 2 days, so it's 3 days. I think Tuesday. So it's really, we'll see how it goes. I'm very hopeful. People like you seem to have picked up on it, and I'm so glad to speak to you guys, especially since this is in my mom's backyard.
Yes, it is. And not only have we been broadcasting live, but we're also recording this. So tell your mom and yourself if you want to use the recording. It's a video, but basically all you see is the top of my head and Robin. but you'll be able to hear the whole discussion. So,
but is it a good head? I guess it's
well, it's a nice one. I don't know if it's good or not.
I'm so glad to talk to you guys. You have a great sense of humor, and you're very lively. And I love the fact that you're interested in this.
Well, you know what? It's just right up my alley. It's perfect for everything that I like. Dan, thank you for being on the air with us. Daniel M. Cohen. Go to his website, danielmcohenauthor.com. Do I have that right?
That's it, exactly.
Excellent.
Or you can go to the Amazons, the Barnes and Noble, all the rest of them. Book is all there.
And is your mom Mrs. Cohen?
Beverly Cohen.
Beverly Cohen.
Yeah.
Well, Beverly Cohen, happy Mother's Day. You did a good job with Dan. Thank you, Dan.
All right, bye-bye.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Lillian Wu. The Justice Department has just confirmed it will